What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another amazing and impactful episode of the True Health Forever podcast, where we show the best life through the lens of holistic health. See, slow and deliberate movements just work out. I'm your host, Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game. And as usual, I have the naturally beautiful, the smiling, the curl-rific, can't wait to go on vacation to
Always.
Queen herself. How you doing? Introduce yourself to people.
What's up, people? My name is Sinclair, aka
The Health Nerd.
And if you're wondering what that was about, we are taking a trip to somewhere that I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, if you've listened to previous podcasts, you know that I'm the trip planner. He literally doesn't know where we are half the time. I always like to tell the honeymoon story when we were in Italy we were in Spain, and he got off the ship and was like, Paris. I was like, sir, first of all, Paris is not on the coast.
Still blessed though.
But anyways, yes, we are going on a trip. I don't know where we're going. He has completely planned this trip. I won't find out until the day of at the airport. So I am looking forward to it. But yes, mystery trip to some place with a beach. That's all I know.
Indeed. But did you even introduce yourself?
I did.
You did? All right, cool. So let's. All right.
Hi, I'm vacation.
That's my name. But first off, before we get into the episode, happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
If you are watching this live, it is June 19th, 2021, a celebration of the late notification of freedom to enslaved Africans in Texas specifically. I like to think, specifically for this year, but also moving forward, a little bit of a renewed focus on financial freedom, economic freedom within the Black community and communities of color, because a little bit of history. Well, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but a little bit of history, right? So when the enslaved folks were freed, they still couldn't get like a regular job. Right? Like you literally were freed from your quote unquote master, but then now that master became your supervisor. And now you still had to check in to work for them. You now had to pay rent for the house that you lived on on their land.
I did not know.
Yes, they were charging people, and to use all the tools that you needed to. Y'all know I don't grow stuff, but to use all the tools that you needed to grow and do the work of the plantation, you needed to purchase or rent those tools, which before were free when you were a slave, but now that you're a worker, they're going to charge you for it. So it basically just put people in debt.
But it's interesting because that's not even how it works in a real job. Like if I hired you to mow my lawn, I mean, do I?
But you have to have the tools to do the job.
That's true.
Right. So it's interesting how, yes, people were freed, but they weren't financially free. And if you're not financially free and you have to do certain things that maybe you don't want to do to, I guess, pay for your own freedom, to pay for your quality of life, are you really free? Like, was that really freedom right then? So in my perspective of history, and definitely interested in other perspectives, I feel like financial and economic freedom should be the focus of our community these days. That way we can have true freedom that our ancestors have been trying to fight for years, right?
Let's go.
But that's not even a theme, right? That's not what we're talking about today. At all. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today, Queen, is sugar. Sugar, sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, sugar, I'm gonna say goodbye. All right, so Queen, a little remix. Queen, why are we talking about sugar today? Why is this topic important? No, it has nothing to do with Juneteenth, unfortunately. I mean, health, kind of, but Queen, why are we talking about sugar?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what prompted me to say I wanted to talk about sugar this week.
You just felt it in your soul. Right?
It's one of those things of like, I don't know if I'll call it the universe, God. It was just like, I think I was literally just getting ready one morning, and it was like, we should talk about sugar on the podcast. Like literally, that's how it happened. I wish I had a deeper story, but the universe just said, this is what you should talk about this week.
Gotcha.
And we hadn't done like a deep, like physical health podcast in a while. I feel like we focus holistically, so we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about money. We obviously, if this is your first episode, we got a lot of episodes.
Go on. This is 64?
64.
I've been here. It's 64, so yeah, definitely go ahead and go back through the catalog. But go ahead, Queen.
Maybe it was just my I had an itch to be nerdy. These are the podcasts where I get to nerd out a little bit, and I feel like I haven't nerded out in a while. So
gotcha.
But yeah, normally I'm prompted by a podcast episode or something. That wasn't the case here. It was just
sure.
Yep. I just accepted the calling that came. But sugar, why it is important to discuss is that it is an epidemic right now, unfortunately, and it's one of those hidden epidemics where it is talked about in some circles, but the sugar consumption of the average American right now is way over where it should be. So, to give you some numbers.
Oh, so you see rolling out the nerd stats. Here we go. y'all in trouble this episode.
So, again, this is just why it's important, right? Let me give you just some numbers to round it out here. The average recommended amount of added sugar that we consume is 24 grams for women and 36 grams for men. The average person is consuming 77 grams every single day, way over the limit. So it's very important for us to talk about if you are chronically over consuming sugar, that's going to have some side effects. It's going to have a lot of effects to your body, right? And we'll get into that on how that actually happens. But that's why it's so important, is that I don't know if the average person realizes that it's just normal, right? Everything that we eat has added sugar. It's been sweetened to accommodate for our palates that expect this sweetness with every single meal. And unfortunately, it's kind of led to this epidemic that we're seeing right now with obesity and just with all of the effects that come with over consuming sugar. So I won't dive in too much. I tend to do that. So
well done. I was wondering when I needed to double dutch in here to stop you from diving into it. But that is why we're talking about it. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. Get it. All right, we're back. Oh, so Queen, you already were kind of diving into the importance of it, but let's rewind. Thank you. Well, right on cue. I appreciate you. Let's rewind and let's talk about what is sugar, right? Not to do 100% baby steps, but we do want to make sure we're starting at the ground level just to put everyone on the same path. So, Queen, what is sugar?
And I think that why it's important to define it is just so that we make sure we're speaking the same language, right? There's so many different, sugar is a very broad word that can mean a lot of different things. So sugar to your body is basically, it is a sweet tasting, soluble carbohydrate. So those are a couple different things involved in that. Sweet tasting, that's what makes it addictive, right? Is that that sweetness that your tongue recognizes. It is soluble, which means it dissolves into your blood and all these things. And it dissolves into a lot of foods, right? It dissolves into water, which is why it is in everything, because it can so easily be added and dissolved into things without you seeing it, right? That's the important part. This wasn't even going to be a tangent, but it'll be a small one. It's hidden, right? That's why one of the suggestions that we'll talk about later on is reading labels, because you don't see it. Let me tell you, you don't see it. That's on purpose. They don't want you to see, the amount of sugar that you're drinking. It just focus on it tasting good. That's all it's important.
Right.
And then the fact that it is a carbohydrate. So that's important because of how your body metabolizes it, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But when you think about different types of sugars, there's a million different types of sugars that we can talk about. But
no, let's not do that.
No, we don't want to do that.
Let's not talk about a million on this 45-minute podcast right here.
I just want to focus on, and we're going to break down just three of the different kinds that you've probably heard. And that's glucose, fructose, and sucrose. So glucose is kind of like it's the simplest form. It's what sugar is broken down to. So that's what it is in your blood, right? It breaks it all the way down, and once it gets to glucose, it can't break it down any further. That's the glucose molecule, and that's what goes into your blood.
Simple sugar.
Simple sugar, exactly. Fructose. Oh, the other thing about glucose is that it is the quickest form of energy. So in terms of carbohydrates, that's your body's preferred source of energy because it goes immediately into your blood, and your body can. Well, there's some other things that happen, which again we'll talk about, but it makes it quick to be able to use that energy to digest food, to walk around, to breathe, and just do everything that your body needs to do. Fructose is the fruit sugar, right? It's literally kind of in the name. But fructose is the fruit sugar. I already said that. There's something else that I wanted to say that I'm going to check my notes for so I don't forget it.
Go ahead and do that, Queen. But we talked about this in another podcast, and we're probably going to get to this eventually. This is really just me stalling. But how the energy or the gas that you put into your body kind of has a direct correlation to the results that you get.
Yes.
So to the glucose being the simplest sugar, the quickest burning, I feel like sometimes you may think, oh, that's good, right? I get energy quick. Not necessarily, right? Exactly. The quicker you go up, the quicker you may come down. So, but Queen, get right back into it.
So fructose, the other thing I want to mention about fructose is it actually has to be converted to glucose in the body. So that's why it takes a little bit longer. That's why if you eat an apple, you're not necessarily going to instantly feel that. Whereas if you eat a candy bar, you're probably going to feel that right away. So the apple has to be converted, right? That fructose has to be converted to the glucose before it can use that energy. So it's a little bit more of a slow burn.
Gotcha.
And then sucrose. Sucrose is basically table sugar, right? That's kind of the scientific name for table sugar. And it's actually a mixture of fructose and glucose. So has the same properties as the other ones because they're kind of combined to make sucrose. And that's what you're hopefully... This is what most people are adding to their coffee. That's what they have in a little jar in their kitchen. So that's sucrose.
Gotcha. So, question for you.
Yes.
And if you don't have that answer right now, all good. But I feel like in my head, naturally, it's seeming that it would be better for a complex sugar like sucrose to be broken down into glucose because it takes energy to break things down. That would be my assumption. Is that assumption somewhat correct, or is it completely left field that sucrose is way up here, so it takes more energy to convert it to glucose, which means maybe your body's working more, maybe you're using more calories, so that would be a quote unquote good thing. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just posing that question to you, Queen.
In the paradigm of wanting to burn calories, sure, maybe. But in the paradigm of digestion being a very taxing energy process for your body, not necessarily.
So you're causing your body extra stress.
Yes, extra stress, extra work. Digestive is already the most taxing thing that our bodies have to do. So now you're kind of adding another step to it. Now you got to take the Lego apart before you can put them away.
Shout out to Legos. We out here, right? All right, love it. So Queen, out of those three sugars, and I'm sure you're going to get to this next, but which one would you feel like we should be trying to get more of or trying to get less of?
I knew you were going to ask that question, which is why I wanted to make this next point. None of them are inherently bad because they all can be found in natural sources. They all are found in fruits and in vegetables, right? So that means none of them are inherently bad. But at the same time, all of them can be dangerous if consumed in excess. That's pretty much that's standard, right? So glucose, that's the simplest form. It's easy, quick energy. But yes, excess glucose, not good to be in your blood, right? Because excess glucose, more work for insulin, which we'll talk about in a second, and you don't want extra glucose just lying in your blood. That's how you get high blood sugar.
Doesn't it also make your blood acidic? I don't know if we were talking about that later on, but I heard the more sugar, specifically soda, that you're consuming, now you have more sugar, more acid in your body, in your blood as well.
I don't know for sure, but that would make sense because you want to be more alkaline, slightly more alkaline, because that's the state of your body that is able to fight off diseases. So that would make sense.
Shout out to Dr. Sebi. That's where I got that from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
then that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So yes, I did just want to drive the point that none of them are inherently bad, but all of them, fructose, again, it has to be converted to glucose. So the reason why I say not exactly is because that work is being done by your liver. So you're going to overload your liver if you're eating fructose in excess, right? So that's why it's like, sure, maybe you're using more your energy, but you don't want to overload your liver because then it's not going to be able to do its job for as long, right? And then sucrose is the same thing because it's made of glucose and fructose. You have the same problems. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. The next point, I think you were kind of already covering it, but why excess sugar is bad? Do you feel like you covered all those?
I did want to cover one more part, and that's just the natural sugar versus added sugar. We're talking, before we move into how it affects the body, I want to talk about those two. And that's just because the added sugar is really what we want to pay more attention to because it is hidden in everything. There is natural sugar. And I'm saying this because there was a conversation with an old coworker at my job, and they were saying that day they had eaten a roast beef sandwich, peanut butter jelly sandwich, and an apple. And they were struggling with high blood pressure. That's a whole nother conversation. But they were like, man, yeah. And I probably have eaten a lot of sugar, so I should probably cut out the apple. And I was like, oh, no. It's the one thing you should not be cutting out because that's the one form of natural sugar you have. The bread from your sandwich is about to be converted to sugar. The peanut butter, the jelly, the other bread from that's all of that is also about to be converted to sugar in your body.
Sprout bread.
No.
I'm positive it was
the white refined bread. And then you're thinking about cutting out the apple because you're concerned about the sugar consumption. So that's why I want to just bring up the point of added sugar is the biggest problem. Natural sugar is okay to consume. You still don't want to overdo it, but I don't think the average person is over consuming natural sugars. Put it that way. So if you're not a person who is, getting your 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, then I wouldn't even necessarily worry about cutting out fruit. Don't worry about that. Eat your fruit because it has good things, other nutrients and things that you need.
Right.
So we're talking about, just real quick to round this out, is when we're talking about added sugar versus natural sugar, we're talking about a fresh orange or even fresh orange juice versus Sunny D. Right.
Sunny D?
I'm sorry.
That don't count?
Okay. Right. So they're both sweet. They're both sweet, right? But you've got the natural sugars, you got the sweetness from the natural orange from the ground. It already has, fructose. It's probably got a mixture of all 3 of those sugars in it that you're going to get from the orange juice. If you squeeze that, you have your natural sugar. That's going to provide a lot of benefits, right? Versus Sunny D, which maybe mimics, the try to mimic the sugars and the flavors, but they're added. So just wanted to drive home that point of
or grape juice versus purple drink.
Purple drink. I want that purple stuff.
I want that purple stuff.
Exactly.